Shalom, family in Messiah, and thank you so much for joining us this week for our weekly news review. And we're going to be going over quite a few stories in this review that I pray are a blessing to you, that we take this time to review. I've gotten so many great notes and words of encouragement from so many of you about these reports. And so I'm thankful that you appreciate just taking the time to kind of go over some of the key things that are going on and kind of keep an eye on trends. One of my gift sets is pattern watching. And so when I see a pattern, it really erupts in my mind a little differently perhaps than others. And so as I start to notice some of these things, then, what I feel is my obligation to you all is to share those insights and kind of help you see some of the things that I'm seeing. And hopefully this will help in your decision making as well. But if nothing else, keep you abreast of the things that are going on in the earth. Now, I assume everybody can hear me okay. Somebody give me a 5x5. Alan, give me a 5x5 if you can hear me okay. If you can hear me in Wisconsin, then we know we're good. We're good to go. And thank you so much for joining us. Please please share and invite your friends to join with us. And it's always a great time to get together with other believers, those that are also standing in faith in this hour and also standing against the darkness, if you will. And so it is a very important time that we stay united and kind of put aside our differences, put aside those weights and sins that easily beset us so we can run our race. And that includes, some of the things that we can be a bit dogmatic about, but there are 12 tribes in Israel, so find your tribe. If you don't like one, you might like another. Find the spot you belong in, and let's be together in unity in Messiah as we review the things that are going on in the earth. Yes, I'm sure it is quite cold up north. And before I go too far, our good friend of this ministry and someone that is a dear friend of ours, Octavia Martinez, many of you familiar with her and her work. Please keep her in prayer. And we've been praying. We prayed for her today as a group. And just want to mention her. Whenever somebody is not doing well or not feeling well, it is something that as a house, as a group, we all should stop for a moment and speak a word of blessing, speak a word of healing, speak a word of breakthrough and protection around one another. Amen. And so I just want to encourage you to always do that and be sensitive one to another. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm grateful for every one of you that take the time to sit with us during these broadcasts. And today we're going to be going over a couple of things. One thing that we mentioned several weeks ago, I want to put it up on the screen very quickly. We talked about this during the, hold on just a second. Screen, and let's go ahead and add screen one. There we go. We shared this several weeks ago concerning the Supreme Court case. And I just wanted to reintroduce this again because it was something we talked about several weeks ago. And again, we track these things to see, well, is this real or is this just, more, just nonsense information? There's a lot of disinformation that comes out. But as we went through this case and went through the material, we concluded that it was in fact valid. And so this is a very, very powerful case, which puts the Supreme Court in a pickle, to say the very least. So there's 388 respondents, which include many members of Congress and the Senate and the Biden administration, including and not limited to Michael Pence, Kamala Harris, and the president himself. Joseph Biden. And so this is a very, very, very important case that is now sitting before the Supreme Court. And the reason why I believe it is so important, the reason why I believe it presents an issue is because it is setting the sort of tone. So for the last 2 years, We've all been listening to a lot of misinformation, disinformation, lies, manipulation, attempts to put us back to sleep because we were all awakening. Well, the light's not going off, it's just getting brighter. And this is a problem for those who enjoy the dark. Shalom in Jerusalem. Always grateful when you join us from around the earth. It's always a blessing. And so because of this and other efforts that were going on behind the scenes that many of you were not aware of, many cases, sealed indictments, things like that, that are affecting the overall atmosphere, if you will. And so this case is the reason why I bring this up before I share with you some additional items is to show you that something that we mentioned that very few people had even heard about, that hadn't even really been talked about, and certainly was not on any national media platforms. You weren't going to hear about that. But if you go on over to BitChute, and I just typed in Supreme Court case, and I just put newest first right here, and you're going to see that the Lloyd Brunson massive Supreme Court case is leading all the search terms for Supreme Court. The Brunson case has taken over. So what this indicates to me as I'm watching this sort of from an overview is that there's an awakening occurring, and the legitimacy of this case. And now these brethren are now going about doing interviews and sharing how they came to this point. And so if you look at this, this is not a small number of different outlets and news commentators that are commenting on this case that is going to be coming up for review, coincidentally on January 6th. If anybody does not see the irony in that, I will help you with that irony, so that you have no problem seeing exactly how ironic this really is. So what we're seeing, of course, is a combat in the heavens, if you will. All right. I mentioned to somebody this, I was talking to Gene this morning. I said, the thing about the scripture is it lets you into conversations you otherwise would know nothing about. I mean, think about it. When would you have been in the palace to hear anything going on with David or some of those prophetic things that are written and recorded? These were all recorded in very specific places that if you didn't have it written down, you wouldn't have known those conversations even happened. In the same way, there's a lot that is happening that is not reported, right? And so we need to be updated so that we can understand sort of the macro picture of what is happening right now. And so right now in the sort of palaces of power, if you remember 2015, the horn was blown. And this was not a joke. He's not running for king. He is king. And it was at that time, one of the things I wanted to mention very quickly is if you have a special testimony from 2015, if you had a special assignment or were sent on a special mission, or some kind of major breakthrough happening in your life, please take the time to send me a note. I'd love to hear from you. Hey, Shalom, our sister Octavia made it on the broadcast. Thank you for joining us. And so I'd love to hear from you. 2015 turns out a pivotal year. And so when that occurred, when the battle occurred in the heavens, if you remember, they turned the Supreme Court multicolored. They thought they'd won. They were thumbing their nose at heaven. They're trying to do it again now. Here comes his judgments. And so, but his judgments are not coming down recklessly. So he's dealing with those in power who need to be dealt with. Let me just put it like that. So he is very selectively striking where he needs to strike to preserve the people who are relatively innocent in many of these machinations. Again, so that is, yes, our sister has a great testimony from 2015. A lot of people have great testimonies from 2015. And you're starting to realize as time has gone on, now we're 7 years from that point, that this turned out to be a pivotal time in Earth's history. This was a rocker moment. This was a fulcrum moment, and it was like it could go either way. And Elohim had strategically placed brothers and sisters around the earth doing various things. I wasn't the only one on an assignment. There were other assignments happening at that time. Love to hear from you. Share your comments below, because I really believe a lot of people have testimonies from that time period as the Ruach was awakening to the reality of this war. And you're seeing this is a real war, saints. This is not a joke. People are dying. People are being imprisoned. People are taken to tribunals that you may not be aware of. There are cases going on that are being done by the military. That's a whole another kettle of fish. So there's a lot happening right now that stems from that time period. And so this particular Supreme Court case, and again, I just kept scrolling, and there were just more and more and more and more cases, or more and more videos that are coming up concerning that particular case. The Brunson cases is what it's called. So you're certainly able to go do your own homework on that. I'm just alerting you to the fact that it is a serious and real case. So we reported on that several weeks ago. Now we're tracking it. Okay, so we're tracking that. Tracking the awareness level, despite the fact that you probably haven't heard word one on any mainstream news outlet. So so they're using their weapons, and their weapons are media control, information control, attempts to create narratives and spin narratives when they cannot control it with the truth. This is actually a very dangerous time when they cannot control the truth from coming out. In other words, they can't stop a story. That's when it's really bad, because that's usually when you see false flags or other events that they blow up so that you're paying attention to this while this other thing is happening. So you have a lot of cunning craftiness whereby men lie in wait to deceive. So if you know, and they know, by the way, every single one of those respondents on this Supreme Court case, every single one of these people I am back. Wow, that was trippy. Wow. I apologize for that delay. My system went absolutely haywire right there, which is kind of interesting. So we'll we can all speculate as to why that was. Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, all of these respondents were notified. Okay, there's no way you're going to have, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the, what do you call it? Certiorari, I forget the name, how to say it. Certiorari. There's no way you have this without them all being notified. And apparently they're being defended by the Solicitor General. And so they all were notified that they are now under, they had to respond actually by last week, I believe was their deadline for responding to this. So you know as well as I do that they have there's no question that they know about this, right? So they know what's happening right here, right? So you have the Supreme Court over here prepared to deal with this case. Now, for those of you that don't understand what this case is about, this case is not about election fraud. Certiorari. Yeah, see, even if you write it out, look at this, guys. Well, that made it easier. Well, that was simple. Certiorari. And I'm good at pronunciation, so that one's a tongue twister, okay? At least some people say I'm good. I don't know. Maybe I'm not any good at it because I can't try that. I know. But that one's a hard one, okay? But anyhow, so they notified them. They understand the stakes. The Supreme Court is not reviewing whether or not there was election fraud. That's Congress's job. What the Supreme Court is reviewing is whether or not they broke their oath of office when they certified without reviewing. And the catch-22 for the Supreme Court, guys, for this, what makes this very dangerous, and this makes this very pivotal moment in American history, and I would dare say even world history, is they are stuck. You see, if they don't review this matter, okay, they could then be charged just like the other 388 people, as also because they didn't review cases either. Remember, they rejected several cases that would have potentially overturned results, or at least taken a look at that. So this tells you that what you're seeing is sort of a cleaning of the mess. Your prayers are being answered. You just may not be able to discern it all. So now they're standing there and they have a tough situation. If they go ahead and say, yeah, you're right, then you just disqualified 388 people from holding public office ever again. Wow. If you don't do this, you could be charged with treason. You see the situation that they're in? They're in a tough spot. Okay? They're in a tough spot. This and then this case had to be brought in a very clean, perfect way. Like, it couldn't have flaws. It had to be presented properly, and they, as I understand it, even helped. So that I'm laying this foundation for you so that you understand what's the threat, what's the impending doom for all of these who were complicit in this fraud. All right. And again, we can't determine what is or isn't fraud on the individual election thing, but the fact that you had taken an oath of office to protect and preserve the Constitution from enemies, foreign and domestic, and you didn't even look into whether or not a foreign enemy may have contaminated your elections, I'd say you're either at least incompetent at the very minimum, and their allegation is that it is actually an act of treason. And treason is, of course, a capital crime. So if the military is dealing with that, Exactly. They are between a rock and a hard place, and it is not a fun place for them. So they couldn't very well reject the case because, again, they could be named then, and then the next court of redress would have probably been a military court. So this is where it needed to go. If it doesn't get solved at the Supreme Court, then it has to go before the military has to review it. And because if in fact they're just blowing by, if they're ignoring, then they're just as guilty as the rest. So this is their actually this is their opportunity to kind of save themselves. So again, this is the war, and this is going on in the heavens. This is what the Supreme Court of the United States does affects the world, and don't think it doesn't. All right, because other countries go off those decisions as well. So do other judiciaries. So this has a lot of impact worldwide, even though it's only jurisdictionally covering the United States. Do not think that it does not have an international impact. And so you got to understand what is happening. So there are those that are already talking about that the case is so solid and that it is a bit irrefutable that they're already rounding up people. And so this is going to help you understand why you're seeing in the news today, again, the return fire. Okay, so you see what's going on here so that you're not overwhelmed by it. Now they've got return fire going. What are they doing? Well, they're essentially threatening one another. You got the legislature, which is indirectly threatening the proxy of the judiciary, because again, here it comes. And this is part of this is meant to sell you something. Okay. Part is whenever persecution is used strategically, it's meant to sell you whatever's being persecuted. So persecution can be arranged in such a way so as to sell you or give favoritism. But now we're seeing this January 6th committee, interesting coincidence, okay, to urge prosecution. So what's that going to do to his base? Think in terms of the macro picture. This is going to stir up the base, right? And this is going to be right when they need the base to be actively pro because of what they're about to do. This, right? This thing. Because they're going to go here. So this stirs up the base, gets the boat tilting to the right, if you follow my meaning. And it becomes very dangerous, folks. Very dangerous. If they pull this trigger, saints, it is all bets are off. And those who think it's going to be a wonderful time have themselves been deceived. Okay? Because this is a setup from the get-up. All right. So just be aware. You're awake. Yeah. Take advantage of the euphoria to buy things cheap that you need. Take advantage of their excitement to make your last-minute arrangements. It's departure, right? So he's making a way where there seems to be no way for many of you. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is not a joke. And if they pull this trigger, which I believe they're going to, and I'm going to show you again reasons why I believe they're going to do this, why they're setting up for this grand shiftaroo, and there's reasons for it. It is to set up the world stage is being set up now. One of the players that was a key player in 2015 happened to be opposite the hill that I was on. I didn't know it at the time. I wasn't cognizant of it. I wasn't thinking about it. The next day, we found out that we were there opposite the Pope, and we were on the hill at the same moment that he was speaking to Congress. So does it surprise anybody that he has submitted his resignation, and that according to latest reports that he is planning on his departure to go back? He's actually going to be, this is actually an old report, but it resurfaces because this is how he still feels. He's still planning on heading back to Argentina, if you will, and retiring. So this is kind of an interesting scenario, to say the least. But I think it's kind of ironic that he comes up into the news as retiring. There are those that believe that this is an imposter and that the real one was already removed. We'll wait and see. That's one of those, we're watching that story, if you know what I mean. But without evidence, we just go with what they're showing you. It really doesn't matter if this is an imposter or the real one. Makes no difference. The point is the same. They're losing power. And why would he be resigning? Because he's got medical. They're using this medical. He's 80 something years old, and and so he signed his resignation in case anything happens and all this other stuff. Well, what do you see? What do you see going on? You see players positioning because they're not sure what's going to happen. They're not sure what's about to happen. It could go one way or the other, right? Okay. Now, what did I tell you guys was going to happen with China? I just talked about this last week. And this is excellent sourcing, by the way. I want to thank all my sources out there. I've got a few of them out there that are excellent sources of information. But I warned you all that China was going to start dropping its restrictions and gaslight. Just last week, we talked about this. And sure enough, what are they doing? They're almost acting as if nothing happened. Not quite, but it's getting there. It's going to get there quick. It's going to get there a lot quicker than you think. So China's authorities are requiring resumption of public transport. And just as I told you they would, and again, excellent sourcing, great job out there. Those that are sending in great reports. Their transport authority has required efforts to resume the regular operation of public transport, which is basically saying we're all done with this crazy. And the reason why is because their people have put them on blast and said, if you keep this up, we're going to take you all down. This has been no joke. And they followed the science right back to the money, if you know what I'm saying. Okay? They followed the science right back to the money. And it's all falling apart as predicted it would. So it did its job. It got its 2/3. Now it's done. Now it's going to shrivel up. But that doesn't change its impact. All right. So we'll have to come back to this saga as it continues. A lot of people are going to unfortunately lose their lives because they believe these liars. And it's unfortunate, but it's reality. So this is what we have to deal with. We've got to get over it. We've got to move on because we're in a time of war. All right. And I just want you guys to keep your eyes focused on the prize and realize that you are in a time of war. Russia and NATO are, Russia is basically saying NATO dialogue is out of the question. We're not trying to talk to you guys. We're not trying to talk to you. Okay. Dialogue between Russia and NATO is out of the question amid the current developments, a source in Moscow told TASS. Any dialogue with NATO as an organization is out of the question now, given the current developments, the source said. It's to the point that when representatives of NATO as an organization appear at universal international platforms, we will demand that they should not be there. This is all-out war, saints. There is nowhere else for them to run or hide. They overstepped here, and I believe now they are going back with their proverbial tail between their legs. And unfortunately, this is not good. This presents some serious problems. As I understand it, Germany has enough ammunition for like 2 days of direct conflict, and it would surrender within 2 days. Now, if I know that, and I just said it to you, who else do you think knows that, right? So there's little resistance left for a real conflict. And they're already suing for peace because the real enemy here is being defeated. And speaking of Germany, let me put them on the screen. They're bleeding for cash just to keep their lights on as their green experiment becomes a disaster. So they're not in a position to be, pressing any more sanctions against anybody. They're going to be trying to just keep their own lights on. So Germany closed its fossil fuel-fired and nuclear power plants in favor of pursuing green energy policy, replacing those plants with wind and solar power, and that's just not working out. Now, they're doing this on purpose, I believe. Personally, I smell a rat. I think that they're doing this to get people used to power insecurity. I believe that years ago, I talked about financial dominion. In the future, you're going to hear me talking about energy dominion. Because if you don't have dominion over your own energy, you don't have freedom. And they are going to war using power, using all of their all their weapons of warfare, everything that they have in their control and at their beck and call, they're going to use because they hate you. In case you didn't know that, they hate you. And, they think there's too many and they need you all to die. And they especially hate the remnant. Like, you're on the top of their hate list. And you're the nicest people in the world, literally the nicest people on earth. And you're on the top of their hate list. I don't even understand it. You're the sweetest, kindest, most generous people on all of the earth, and they hate you. If you can explain that, all right, you're better than me, because I don't understand it. I really don't. I don't understand how people can feel the way they do, but they do. All right. Taking a quick look here again, the millions of Americans in multiple states face elevated risk of winter power outages. I don't think it's just going to be limited to this winter. I believe energy dominion is going to be a big factor going forward. Texas, New England, the Great Lakes, American Southwest are facing unprecedented and widespread reliability risks. They built way past their ability infrastructure-wise to support. We need decentralized power, just like we need decentralized everything else. Big everything was a failure. Okay, so they set us up. They knew it would fail. They set it up to fail because this gives them damage, and damage is they're like dragons. They like to eat the ash of everything they burn. I'm not kidding. I mean, they operate in some kind of dragon fire mentality, which is scorched earth. If you haven't picked it up yet, just go back and look at pictures of World War I and World War II and realize they could have stopped that anytime they wanted to. They bombed because they wanted to. Okay, and they don't love anybody. These are some seriously evil people. Thankfully, they are being rounded up. So continue to pray for the Marines, our young men and women that are being forced to go into very dark and evil, wicked-looking places and drag these psychopaths out. That's happening right now. That is Malachi chapter 4, where he is commanding the treading down of the wicked. That is occurring right now as we speak. It is not an easy battle. It is going to continue to be a fight. So continue to pray for those that are in harm's way and on the front lines of this confrontation, because it is real. It is real, and it is coming for us all. How many have noticed that food prices are going up like crazy? I just want to let you know that America does not have a food shortage right now. So this is like preemptive food price increasing. They're doing this intentionally. U.S. vegetable prices increased by a whopping 38% in November. In 1 month, in November, but they say inflation is, quote, under control. The mainstream media is trying really hard to convince all of us that inflation will soon no longer be a problem. But meanwhile, food prices continue to soar to absolutely absurd levels. In fact, we just learned that vegetable prices increased by a whopping 38% in November. Now, why that becomes obviously problematic is because people have become accustomed to living not as a group, not functioning as families, not operating as communities anymore. So this becomes devastating. This would not have been very devastating even just 50 years ago, when most people had it. I grew up with my parents, even in the city, and they had an acre, and they had corn, and they had vegetables, and they had fruit, two apple trees, peach trees. I mean, that was normal. That was a fairly normal thing. Not anymore. Now people are so dependent on big food, big grocery, big feed me, right? So whenever we centralize power, well, there's a compromise there, and that is being reflected in their ability to control. So they're manipulating the situation so as to cause harm. Let's face it, they want people's immune systems depleted. so that they can do harm to other people. And this is why we need those of you who are involved in the medical profession, who are out there as our last, that last defense. Till the king removes you, continue to do good work there. Continue to bless those that are coming in that need help. I think about those medical professionals that are telling the truth. And boy, do we ever need those. And now, of course, they're vindicated, right? So they're being vindicated for having told the truth. It took a lot of courage to stand there. And I have a couple of friends that I know are several actually, and family members that are in the medical profession, and they had to stand their ground. I have a daughter who's a doula, and if you don't think that was a little tough to maintain, but I encouraged her. I said, here, trust me, when this thing's over, you're gonna be the one in demand. They're gonna be calling for you. They're not gonna want anybody that's touched any of this stuff to come near them. Okay. And so, we need to continue to pray for those that are medical professionals. They're at the front lines of this, because now they're seeing the backlash. Now here comes the sick patients. 88% of the people that are dying, or something like 88 people are dying every day in Germany, I think it was, that I saw from complications. That's daily. That's a crazy thing. But that's reality. And so thank Elohim for those that had enough sense to know not to trust the narrative, and as a result, they made it through that test. We're not done. We got to go through more fire, but well done, and hang in there, because we need you. We need you in there. You know how many people you're going to be helping by being a beacon of light, by telling the truth. I know of one medical professional, just by asking questions, forcing people to have some conscience. Try not to get other people sick with your bad procedures. It's crazy what is allowed, and again, lowering standards. We centralize power. We disconnected from community, so people don't care about one another like they used to. These are all things that are detrimental to our long-term blessing and health. We need to be a people that care about one another again. And that's something that we should never have disconnected from, and never allowed anybody to take from us. So the economic situation, and again, this is part of the plan. So they're trying to create an economic situation, and there's a reason for it. So let's pay attention to the overall narrative. Let's not get lost in a particular detail. The SEC is planning on filing additional charges against accused crypto fraudster. So you see this? See what's going on here? You guys may not understand this, but this is part of seeding and connecting words together for the purpose of controlling narratives and controlling words. Remember that search engines and all of that work on words. So when you put these two words together now, you see what they're doing? They're blaming, they're putting a stink, if you will, on crypto because of a bad actor. And you never see them do that with, say, the US dollar. Whereas, say, the US dollar fraudster, right? They don't do that. They'll just call somebody, they'll say committed bank fraud or committed some type of crime, but they won't call them a US dollar fraudster. So what are they trying to do here? They're trying to sully crypto. Okay, so just understand, look beyond the headlines, look past what's really happening. This is what's really happening. And of course, who are they using? Well, they're using Uncle Sam, the Bankman. And the bank is fried. All right, so again, they're doing this right in your face. They're doing this so that you don't realize what's happening. And again, this I could have taken a number of different headlines. I just grabbed this one from Natural News, not picking on Natural News in any way. I'm sure they grabbed that from, or just use the same thing that other people are saying. But you see, the point is that we fall for these narratives very easily, and the next thing you know, they're calling crypto and everything that's alternative currency a fraud. Now, why would they want to do that? Well, I'll show you why. Glad you asked me that question. Here's why. Because the CBDC in 2023, that's why. They need to decimate their competition. You see, these guys don't know how to play fair and play on a fair level playing field. Think Titanic, or should I say Olympic, right? But think Titanic, they get rid of their opponents. They get rid of those that are opposing them. They can't win on a fair field, so they have to do these things. Federal Reserve planning to implement FedNow digital currency between May and July of 2023. Let me tell you something, folks. These folks are broke. So all this is bravado. They're hoping you all buy into it and that you'll use it. Because if you don't use it, they go broke permanently. These folks are broke. They're making up stuff as they go, pretending they're going to go on as business as usual when the king has already made declarations against them. And so they don't have a good future. They're going to reach a point where the only way they can move forward is to give you your Jubilee. Now, once they give you that Jubilee, they're going to try and get you to re-sign up again. You get it? So it's like, we're going to cut you free, but come on back. Or get your real sign up. We're going to reel you in, and they're going to bribe and bribe and bribe because that they have plenty of digits to create. But watch this. Watch how clever this was. If I have a $50 bill and I pay somebody with that $50 bill, how much does the bank make in that transaction? Nothing. Okay, zero. I gave them cash. I handed a $50 bill. We do it all the time. And then he takes that $50 bill and he pays his babysitter with it, right? And the babysitter takes it home and she pays something else with it. In other words, so let's take the $50 bill and let's travel it 5, 6, 7, 10 times, okay? Between paying it and receiving it, there's no bank fees, there's no nothing. This is their enemy. Cash is a problem for them. But if you have now a digital currency, right, so that where it is trackable, unlike cryptocurrency, which is not. I mean, it is, but it's not. In other words, it's more anonymous, and it's a very different thing. It's operated by blockchain. It's not centrally controlled. Whereas this is, okay, so this is just basically signing up to be snooped on, right? And they're going to try to make this like the way to go. And that's why now you understand why they're trying their best to absolutely destroy cryptocurrency. Bitcoin's a problem because anything that is outside of their control, they have they lost control and they're control freaks. So there you go. It's just the way it is. They're control freaks. And they never should have had any business between a private transaction where, you know, you're handing $50 to somebody or $20 to somebody. But now, because you got to go through their digital currency and use their apps and things, you got $1 here, $1.50. Every transaction, it was $1, $1.50. It didn't sound like much. But that $50 went down to $20 after so many transactions. They literally are consuming the $50 in fees at a certain point. Even if they only nick $1 at a time, if they do it digitally, they eventually get the entire $50. Essentially, they're taking back their money from you in fees in a clever little ruse, and among other ruses that they would be pulling and controlling, and then of course controlling usage. So if they don't approve of your usage, they just shut you off, like shut off your internet for the middle of your conversation. So you see what happens when we give too much control away. This backfires on us. So we have to become grown-ups again, like they were 240 years ago, where young men had to become grown-ups and say, we're going to have to sign a document and declare independence and move away from this. That's how this nation was founded. Well, you're watching the second revolution. The problem is that it's walking us right into we're going out of the frying pan into the fire, folks. So I hate to break it to you, but that's basically what we're doing. And so they're trying to control this entire narrative because they know they've got to give you your Jubilee. I told you, they ain't getting past this door. They got to give you your Jubilee. So they're trying to figure out how to get you, like, do a quick switch. Yeah, you're free, but, and that's not all, you know, and it's in that moment, that narrow door, when you're completely free, you need to make your exit from their system and stop depending on them to provide you your sustenance. Because if you don't, they will rope you. And then I don't know when, what deliverance will you have then, right? So this is the point of departure, and this is why it is very dangerous. So digital currency is very different than cryptocurrency. Now, they tried to kill crypto. They failed. And I believe they'll continue to fail. They depressed it. They repressed it. They used this Bankman Freed to repress it and got people to bail on it, got people to sour on it, like, oh, it's bad, which is all they wanted to do. These guys are controlled opposition experts. They know how to make something look bad and, be distasteful. Why? So they can present you their beautiful CBDC, which is not a blockchain controlled product, which is not independent or DeFi. No, it's controlled by a central bunch of banksters who are like this, going, yes, take our CBDC, just like Bitcoin. It's just like it. And they're going to sucker people in because people are naive. So I'm warning you now that that's why that whole machination is going on. It's all about money. Always follow the money, right? And you'll see what the truth is fairly quickly. And lastly, I wanted to bring up a story that I think deserves some coverage, seeing as the mainstream media seems to be ignoring it. It's called, people are calling it the Twitter files. And the real news is that the lefts or the Dems or the media do not care. New Twitter owner Elon Musk gave reporter Matt Taibbi of Substack access to internal Twitter documents about the media platform's decision to spike the Hunter Biden laptop story and how the Biden team had a direct pipeline to Twitter executives. So I find this very interesting, not because of the story or the content or the emails or the whatever. Nothing of this surprises me. But the outright blatant disregard to what was in the news all the time. Twitter was the news, right? All of a sudden, nobody wants to talk about Twitter files. See, what we talked about this as a family several weeks ago, several Shabbats ago, that all their secrets shall be revealed. So, and just like the next week, I think, or the week after, something within a short amount of time after that broadcast, all of a sudden we're seeing all these revelations, and we're not done. There's a lot more that's coming out. But why is that now happening? It's happening because of the timing. We're running out of time, saints. The king is coming. So all these things are preceding the coming of the king. And all of these events are part of his light. Remember what the scripture says. And this is for everybody who believes in Messiah. Listen carefully. He said that the wicked are destroyed by the brightness of the king's coming. That means just his brightness upon arrival, his arriving, is too much for evil. They can't handle it. Look at them running for the exits. I'm resigning. They're running for exits already, okay? Because they know what's happening. There's no place to hide. The business as usual has ended. The average citizen, by the way, people ask, what can I do? And one of the things that I just recently saw, and I think is a wonderful idea, is they're bombarding the Supreme Court. There's a letter writing campaign. A lot of people on the right, especially, are demanding that the Supreme Court rule on that case. So there's momentum building behind that. The new January 6th, if you will, January 6th all over again. So while these guys are coming out with criminal referrals, which are laughable at best, there's a real January 6th issue coming up that I believe is going to be monumental. And I do believe that I would be very surprised if the Supreme Court did not grant this case or award the case for the plaintiff, because it would implicate itself if they didn't. And trusting in self-preservation, I'm pretty sure people are going to self-preserve. And the Supreme Court has the power to shut down at any time now. So if Congress were suddenly contemplating a piece of legislation to add, say, 5 more judges, they would suddenly move that thing up in the docket, I would expect, so they could remove Congress. So, and you're seeing this going on in other countries because the level of infiltration and infestation was extreme. Okay. So you need an extreme disinfectant when you have an extreme case of contamination. And in the United States, which is probably, if it's the head of nations, well, it's got head lice and it needs decontamination. There's a cleanse only Elohim can bring. And he has selected, he's got various vessels that are doing this work, just like he had us doing special work in 2015. And many of you have assignment testimonies to share. Well, beyond that, there's assignments going on right now. And some of them are governmental, some of them are military, some of them are judiciary. And these are every bit as much a part of a spiritual war as other operations that were done. Blowing the horn in 2018 again and declaring against the Pope and against the Vatican, an apostolic decree. Many of you may remember that. That kind of thing is what changed the atmosphere. And again, we were not alone. Many people were led of the Ruach. They who are led of the Spirit of Elohim, they are the sons of Elohim. And so the sons of Elohim were out there in great numbers, praying, interceding, and declaring. Now you're seeing the results. So I want to encourage you to keep praying, keep declaring, keep pushing. You're winning this war, but you got to press this fight. And now's the time. Now pray for those who are in the throes of the battle. There are some of you have family members and friends who were vacillating, and they're waking up going, whoa, there's more coming out than I realized. This is our opportunity to pray them into the kingdom. Pray that they don't just awaken a little, they awaken all the way. That they realize that the very same wicked people that were eating human flesh, okay, just like the scripture says they would, by the way, which if you read it just what it says they consume flesh, all right? The same wicked people are the same ones who contaminated your scripture so that you wouldn't call upon his name, contaminated the truth, tricked you into idol worship, tricked you into demonic practices, tricked you into demonic doorways, all with the same intention, to keep you powerless in the day when they were trying to take over. They knew that if you were operating on the earth, as long as you're here, they wouldn't be able to be successful. And so well done, Remnant. Well done, those of you soldiers of Messiah all over the earth who held your ground, who did not let any man take your crown. And you continue to intercede and pray for your nation, for your region, for your area. We stood in faith here in Cochise County for Arizona. And now Arizona, I don't have an update this week. All I can tell you is the mountain hasn't moved, but we like the direction the rocks are rolling for the sake of the truth that's coming out. So this is what we're praying for. The politics we don't really care so much about as we care about fraud and evil having power and sway. So we're believing Elohim to continue to do this cleanse. I'm believing him to do it in every nation so that he will bring all the glory of all the nations in before him. And you're going to start to see consolidation in a different way, where groups begin to worship together instead of competing with one another. You're going to see groups beginning to bring honor to Elohim in different places. He began to speak to me today about ministry leaders and ministry leadership having to bring their honor to him in central places so that they would then be respectful of the very same way that they're asking for the tithe. They have to bring the tithe. He spoke this to me today. That's a strong word. A lot of people are going to have a hard time with that until they don't. And when they don't, he'll raise up those shepherds that understand. You're going to see this body operating as one. You want to talk about a force to be reckoned with. If the body of Messiah begins to operate as one, even in just regionally, even just in small groups, the more united you are in everything you do, you are the force to be reckoned with. You are who rule the earth. I don't know if you realize that, but that's who they're really fighting. That's what all of this is about, you. This is all about attacking you and keeping you from discovering your destiny. Because if you begin to rule and reign with him as he's declared, and you become that royal priesthood he's declared you to be, what wonderful world we would have. When the righteous rule, the people live in peace. They enjoy great blessing. And so we need the righteous. We need his sons and daughters put in places of authority. And that's exactly what he does in Matthew 25. He enter thou into the joy. You get 5 cities, you get 2 cities, right? And the slacker, the one that just hid the gift of Elohim in the ground, he gets a rebuke. So let us be found faithful. Let us go forward with courage. You have the right. You have the high ground. You paid the price for it. Walk in it. Declare the truth. Encourage your brothers and sisters out there. As many people are awakening. Let's lead them to Messiah. Let's lead them to get water baptized in the name of Yahusha. Don't let them fall for another trick, right? So let's get them water baptized in the name of Yahusha, the name the angel delivered, and let's get them filled by his Ruach, amen. And I like to say, get them saved, get them filled, and leave them alone, because then the anointing will take over. If you haven't yet, I'd encourage you to go back to this last Shabbat's message called The Breaker. I am certain it will be a blessing to you if you haven't heard it yet, because we need your anointing. We need you in the earth. We need you bringing that anointing that he gave you to do. So each one of you have a purpose, and we're looking forward to seeing your light shine. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been a great discussion. Sorry about the technical difficulties in the middle there. We're continuing to try to get this right. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and may Yahuwah bless each and every one of you.